Hi friends, it's Altenew Certified Educator Walter Zemrock welcoming you to the Altenew Educator Color Me Autumn video hop. Stay tuned to the end for details on how you can win an Altenew gift card. If you enjoy this content, please consider giving a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. Also be sure to subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Autumn's rich colors are the focus of my creation, and Altenew's embossing folders and Shimmer Relief Paste bring it to life. Let's get creating. For this card, I'll be using an A2 craft card base, a 4" by 5.25" cream card panel, and a 3.75 by 5" craft card panel. I begin by taking some milk chocolate crisp dye ink and running it around the edges of the craft card panel to create a nice vintage effect and add some grunge around the outside of the card. I then take the organic linen 3D embossing folder and use it to emboss my cream card panel. Be sure to mist the reverse side of your cardstock with a little bit of water to ensure that the paper doesn't crack when you're embossing it. I then ink blend some of the milk chocolate around the outer edges of the embossed card panel. Again, this is to age it and to add some really nice vintage grunge effect. How much you add is really up to you and how dark you'd like to see it. I then take the almond butter crisp dye ink and go over the same area but expanding it a little bit more towards the center. This will help to fill in the cracks and reach down into the card panel to make sure that there's good coverage. When it's done, I put some double-sided adhesive tape onto the back of the panel and adhere it down to the center of my card base. Now it's time to have some fun with the Pearl Shimmer Relief Paste. I take a paintbrush and paint a really good amount of the paste onto my craft card panel. You want to make sure you have really good coverage and make sure that you are using enough to get a good shine on that panel. Once the panel's dry, I use the Blossoming Branches 3D embossing folder, put my panel into it, remember to spray some water onto the back of side of the panel, and I run it through my die cut machine to emboss the panel. Look at how gorgeous that panel is. It's now time to color the panel. Yes, did you know that you can color on top of the dried Shimmer Relief Paste? It is an amazing technique that yields really pretty results. I start with a dark brown alcohol marker, and I'm using the assorted colors of the Altenew Artist Markers. I lay down some dark brown on the branches and then follow up with a lighter shade to add in some nice detail. I then move on to coloring the bird. I use a dark yellow on the legs, claws, and beak of the bird. I then move in with the darker brown and add in some highlights along the body and down in the tail feather area. I then go in with the much lighter brown and go ahead and color in the rest of the bird. You can go back and forth with each of these colors or use some other colors to add in some additional highlights to the bird. An orange would look really good. Also, you might even want to add in a little bit of red, but I really like the brown tones, so I leave it at that. I take a dark green shade of green and start to go around and color in the leaves on the panel. How dark or how light you'd like the leaves and other elements is completely up to you. Also note that I have shortened down these coloring segments so that I'm not taking up too much of your time. I come back to the leaves with the caramel toffee color to add in some nice deep orangey and yellow accents to the leaves. This is autumn after all. And then I move on to my florals. For some of the flowers, I color them in orange, and I start with a dark shade and go around each of the petals. You could even go darker than what I'm doing, but again, I'm looking for those really bright, crisp autumn colors, the nice bright orange, and then you'll see that I do the next set of flowers using a very bright and crisp red. I move around each of the flowers, making sure that I get a good amount of coverage on each petal and making sure that I'm not going outside of the embossed image. Once I'm done coloring with the dark orange, I come in with a lighter shade of orange to add details onto each of the petals. This lightens up the areas that I just colored, and the way that you color each of these petals really depends on whether you want them to be striped or have a little bit more of a fade and dotted look. You can do it however you'd like. I then take a yellow and go in to color in the centers of each of the flowers. Next up is my red flowers. I take a nice darker shade of red and pretty much follow the same technique of coloring in each of the petals around each of the remaining flowers on the embossed panel. Once again, be careful that you stay on the embossed image so that you don't get any of the ink down into the lower unembossed part of the card panel. I then come in with a lighter shade of pink and add in the details onto each of the petals. It's amazing to see how each of these different shades react with the Shimmer Relief Paste, and it just brings them to life and really makes them sparkle. And the final step for the flowers is to use the yellow to color in the centers. Since I'm going for a vintage aesthetic with this card, I take the almond butter crisp dye ink and blend some around the edges of the embossed card panel. I go a little bit heavier around the edges, and then you'll see that I blend lightly on the inside. A little of this ink truly goes a long way. And I also love the way that the ink kind of brings to life these flowers and the panel overall quite a bit more. I choose a greeting from the Painted Greetings stamp set and go ahead, align my panel and the stamp on my stamping platform, and then stamp it with black ink. You may stamp it more than once to make sure that you're achieving a level of darkness that you'd like. My paper trimmer has a deckled edge blade available for it. I use it to go ahead and cut off just a bit on each sides of the card panel to get a nice deckled edge on it. I then put some double-sided adhesive onto the panel and center it down onto my card. As a finishing touch, I add a few of the Altenew gems onto the card panel just for a little bit of extra sparkle. And the card is complete. I'm really happy with how it turned out and think it's beautiful. What do you think? Thanks for joining me today. Leave a comment for a chance to win.
Hello crafters, Jen here. For more tips, techniques, tutorials, and to discover which paper crafting products are right for you, subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks for watching.